There was a lot to look forward to in the months and years leading up to the release of Tears of the Kingdom. People theorized about the story and speculated about new gameplay mechanics, but the thing I was most excited for was the experience of revisiting this world I'd grown so familiar with and seeing what had changed. While there were some interesting twists, like the eerie purple mists surrounding the Lost Woods or the new caves added to the map, time and time again I found myself racing to an area I was excited to explore, only to be bitterly disappointed. I've already talked at length about my thoughts on this game in a video you may or may not have seen, but today I wanted to take a look at some of the lesser-known people, places, and things that mysteriously disappeared between the two games. This video is also a collaboration with a niche YouTuber named Zeltik. You probably haven't heard of him, but I always like to highlight smaller channels when I can.
Thanks for having me. Let's get right into it.
It is impossible to overstate the importance of the Sheikah technology in Breath of the Wild. From the moment the game begins with Link waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection, to obtaining the Sheikah Slate and its runes as part of the game's tutorial, to climbing the towers to fill out your map, to completing the shrines, to freeing the divine beasts, all the way up to your confrontation with Calamity Ganon, who is himself a kind of mechanical monstrosity, the Sheikah tech is front and center. Since the Sheikah technology is so thoroughly bound up in the game's very identity, it makes sense that removing it from the sequel would help make the new game feel more unique. But Sheikah tech is still everywhere in Tears of the Kingdom. The Zonai shrines may be new and different, but you still teleport between them using the Pura Pad. The Skyview towers may be mechanically distinct from the Sheikah towers, but they're still lit with that familiar blue and orange glow. But if the Sheikah tech is still around in some capacity, I have a question. What's powering it? In Breath of the Wild, the ancient technology was powered by ancient energy, which was concentrated in pools beneath the surface of Hyrule. The largest one was underneath Hyrule Castle, but other sources were found in the Hateno and Akala regions. Sitting on top of these pools of ancient energy were the ancient furnaces, burning with a blue flame. That flame was used to return power to the nearby Sheikah Tech Labs, activating Pura's Guidance Stone, Robbie's ancient oven, who he named Cherry, and the warp points outside. In Tears of the Kingdom, these furnaces have vanished, but the Hateno lab is still active. Instead of being disappointed by this, at first I was actually excited. If the ancient energy was found underground, maybe I could explore the depths to uncover clues about what was powering the Sheikah tech. I made my way down the nearest chasm and headed to the spot right underneath the furnace, and it was empty. There was nothing to suggest that this was the source of the ancient energy. I checked the Akala depths as well, just to be safe, but I had no luck there either. There aren't any caves that go below where the furnaces used to be either, and no character ever mentions them, so it seems we're just at a dead end.
One of the biggest changes to the surface world in Tears of the Kingdom was the addition of nearly 150 caves to explore. The Legend of Zelda series was famously inspired by Shigeru Miyamoto's childhood memories of exploring caves near his home, so it just made sense to incorporate caves into the new open-air formula. That's not to say there were no caves in Breath of the Wild, but they were rarely more interesting than a simple nook behind a waterfall or in a cliff face. Even the cave housing the massive Leviathan skeleton in the Hebra region is big, but it doesn't capture the winding, complex nature of caves in real life. That is, until you reach Lake Kilsea and see the unmistakable glow of a Sheikah shrine through a narrow gap in the rocks. You can't get in from here, it's too tight a squeeze, but by bombing nearby rocks to reveal air vents, you're able to fly up high enough to notice a cave entrance in the cliff, illuminated by torches. Once you're inside, you drop down into an underground river that snakes its way through the cave, eventually opening up to reveal the Maka Ra shrine. This is still my favorite shrine in either of the two games, and part of the reason I fell in love with it was because it gave us a taste of how amazing cave exploration could be in this style of Zelda game. Some of the smaller caves from Breath of the Wild were transformed into larger, proper caves in Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild's Gi-Hara shrine was found behind a set of stone doors in the Hebra Mountains, and in Tears of the Kingdom, this little alcove was transformed into the Kopiki Drifts cave. The small cave at the Lanayru Promenade, where the Dao Na'er shrine was located, is now the Lanayru Road South Cave, where you fly a Zonai plane through the waterfall to complete a shrine quest. It's strange then that the cave that once held the Makar-Ra shrine wasn't just left empty and unchanged, it was completely erased. Returning to the dock reveals that the gap in the rocks has been sealed up, and while you can still soar up on the air vents, the entrance to the cave is gone. There's a new cave very close by that's tied to one of the game's side quests, but it's sad to see such a memorable part of Breath of the Wild erased from its sequel.
One of my favorite parts of exploring Breath of the Wild's Hyrule was coming across various plants, animals, and mushrooms during my travels. It was always exciting to reach a stable or town after wandering through a new area and seeing if they had any new ingredients for sale, then heading to a cooking pot to test out new recipes. Cooking doesn't make for the most riveting gameplay, but I always found it to be very rewarding. Tears of the Kingdom streamlined this process by allowing you to easily catalog and recreate dishes you've made before. On top of that, the developers added a bunch of new ingredients into the mix. Some, like the stambulbs and sky shrooms, are native to the Sky Islands. Others, like the glowing cave fish and bright caps, are found in the caves. And others still, like the oil jars and the new Hateno cheese, are made by humans. But there was one beloved ingredient from Breath of the Wild that didn't make it into Tears of the Kingdom: the hardy durian. This was probably done for balancing reasons, because the hardy durian was by far the best ingredient for healing in the game. The big hardy radish does grant one more heart than the durians, but they're much harder to come by. Durian trees, on the other hand, are all over the Faron region, and each one usually has 2 fruits growing on it. So in terms of bang for your buck, the hardy durian truly is the king of fruits. It's a shame to see them removed from Tears of the Kingdom altogether instead of simply being nerfed or changed in some way. I would have been especially interested in their use as a fuse material. In real life, durians can be legitimately dangerous. They're heavy, and they're covered in hard spikes that can easily pierce human skin, but they're most infamous for their strong smell. It would have been so cool to see the durians repurposed into a fuse material that could deter enemies with a powerful stench, but instead, they've vanished without a trace. The best place to find them back in Breath of the Wild was in this spot, right by the Faron Tower, but if you come back here in Tears of the Kingdom in search of your favorite fruit, you'll be rewarded for your efforts with a Gloomspawn ambush. I can't lie though, that's actually pretty funny. Well played.
While exploring Southeast Hyrule Field in Breath of the Wild, you'll come across the Bottomless Swamp, where a group of moblins and bokoblins have set up their base inside a gigantic skull. While skull-shaped enemy camps are everywhere in Breath of the Wild, they're not actually made of bone, but of stone. This skull is unique in size, color, and shape, seemingly not belonging to any other creature we see in the game. The skull sits, appropriately, in a murky, bottomless bog, surrounded by small pools of malice. There's no shrines to be found here, no side quests bring you here, it's just a mysterious, ominous locale. The Switch 2 edition of Breath of the Wild included 125 new voice memories that you can find using the Nintendo Switch app on your phone. If you visit the Bottomless Swamp, the voice note says the following:
I have heard that the giant fossil in Bottomless Swamp was once worshipped by cultists who considered it the Demon King from ancient times. It is said that their blasphemous words against the goddess summoned evil spirits, turning the water impure and changing the very shapes of the rocks to ominous forms. Now it serves as a den for monsters, so setting foot inside is not possible.
You heard that right. This fossil was once the subject of worship for a mysterious cult. This is the only mention of these cultists anywhere in the voice notes, creating a champion, or the game itself. What caught my attention was the line about the shapes of the rocks changing. At first, I thought it implied that the colossal fossil was made of stone like the other enemy camps, but the cause and effect don't line up. If the rocks transformed because the cultists worshipped the skull, the skull itself can't be a transformed rock. What's more likely is that this line refers to these pale, bone-coloured rocks that surround the swamp itself. This type of rock is also found at Skull Lake and the Breach of Demise, so perhaps these three areas are connected in some way. In Tears of the Kingdom, however, the bottomless swamp has transformed into the bottomless pond. The skull has vanished, the water is clear, and the bone-like rocks have disappeared. The bottomless pond is where Link lands when he first dives down to the surface of Hyrule after completing the Great Sky Island. So it's likely that the developers simply cleared out the area so it could serve this purpose. If that's the case, though, why add a voice note that suggests some fascinating history in Breath of the Wild to an area that Tears of the Kingdom would effectively erase? Much like the story of the bottomless swamp cultists, it remains a mystery.
One of Breath of the Wild's most memorable shrine quests is Recital at Warbler's Nest. After taking back control of Divine Beast Vamido, a Rito named Amali tells you that her daughter, Keel, has gone missing. She guesses that Keel has run off to Warbler's Nest to practice her singing, and sure enough, if you head over there, you can find her frustrated that her 4 sisters didn't show up for rehearsal. She enlists your help to find them and convince them to join her, and while some of the Rito sisters are easier to convince than others, eventually all 5 of them will gather together. If you talk to Keel, she tells you that the song they're singing has been sung at Warbler's Nest since ancient times. By listening to the order the sisters sing in, then using a Korok leaf to blow a gust of air through each of the 5 stone statues in the same order, the Vu Lota shrine will appear. This is a great quest and one of the first examples I come up with when I think about the better shrines in the game. Upon returning to Rito Village in Tears of the Kingdom, the 5 sisters have stepped up to take more of a leadership role while the adults search for food to survive the blizzard created by Colgera. It makes sense that they don't really have the time to practice singing anymore, but what doesn't make sense is that Warbler's Nest is just gone. If you head to the spot where it used to be, it's totally empty, save for 5 raised bumps on the ground corresponding to the 5 stone statues. Looking at the map, the area isn't even called Warbler's Nest anymore. This decision makes no sense to me. Not all the terrain associated with the shrines in Breath of the Wild is gone. These stone rings that opened the Sheim Dago's shrine are still in Tears of the Kingdom, and Warbler's Nest seemed to be an important part of Rito tradition in Breath of the Wild. Getting rid of it feels a bit like a slap in the face, honestly. It would have been really amazing to have a side quest where, after shouldering so much responsibility during the blizzard, the sisters are able to reunite to sing together again. I found myself wishing for that sort of continuity between the games constantly during my time with Tears of the Kingdom, but sadly, it never delivered.
Just east of Lurelin village lies the Palmerae ruins. This area features the dragon motifs and intricate carved stone characteristic of Zonai ruins, and in Breath of the Wild, it's home to the shrine quest, a fragmented monument. Here, you can find the character Garini examining the titular fragmented monument, a broken stone disc that is distinct from any of the other relics we see in the game. Neither Sheikah nor Zonai in origin. If anything, it bears the closest resemblance to the Mirror of Twilight from Twilight Princess. There's text written on the monument that he can't make out, so it's up to Link to take pictures of missing fragments with his Sheikah slate. Garini translates the full text to reveal a riddle that unlocks the Ka-Ya shrine. Since the text on the monument opens up the way to a Sheikah shrine, it's possible that it was created by the monks of the distant past. But there's no shortage of Sheikah-made objects to compare it to, and it doesn't resemble any of them. It even gives off an eerie blue-green glow at night, much like the luminous stones, which are said to contain the souls of the dead. The internal name for this monument is Search Stone, but that doesn't tell us much about its origin. It may even just be called that because it's a broken stone monument and you need to search for its pieces. The text on the monument is also mysterious. The ancient Sheikah had a distinctive writing system that doesn't at all resemble the text on this monument, so what language is it written in? And furthermore, where did Garini learn to read it? It's worth noting that the relic looks quite a bit like the Zonai terminals that are found all across the map in Tears of the Kingdom, and the ruins do appear to be the work of the ancient Zonai. so perhaps there's more here than meets the eye, but no. In Tears of the Kingdom, the monument has vanished, and there's nothing to be found at the Palmyra ruins besides a single Korok. Guarini is still around, but he spends his days working as a fisherman, his previous interest in ancient ruins seemingly forgotten.
While every player's path through Breath of the Wild will look different, they all end in the same place: Hyrule Castle. From the moment you activate your first Sheikah Tower, your end goal is laid out in front of you. Whether it's in 20 minutes or in 200 hours, eventually you'll have to storm that foreboding castle on the horizon and confront Calamity Ganon. When Link arrives in the Sanctum, Zelda's seal falters and Ganon breaks free. His massive body, part malice, part machine, part spider, all burning with hatred, crashes through the floor of the Sanctum, revealing a steep drop leading to a chamber deep beneath the castle. This is the Astral Observatory, a Sheikah-made planetarium with the various landmarks of Hyrule, like the Divine Beast, the Great Deku Tree, and the Dueling Peaks, projected onto its walls. I wondered if the name, Astral Observatory, meant that this place was related in some way to the Astral Observatory found in Majora's Mask, another Zelda game featuring an unsettling moon, but this room only received that name in the English version of Creating a Champion. In the original Japanese version, the Masterworks, it was just called the Chikakudo, or Underground Cavern, but the text still noted that this was the place where the ancient Sheikah conducted their astrological research, so the English name Astral Observatory didn't come from nowhere. You might think that the study of the skies would come into play in a game that allows you to traverse floating islands, but you'd be wrong. The Astral Observatory is gone, with dirt and debris packed into the hole in the Sanctum's floor. The history and culture of the ancient Sheikah was one of the most interesting parts of Breath of the Wild to me, and though I've said it a million times, I'll say it again, it's unbelievably disappointing to know that we'll probably never get to learn more about them.
Mount Grenage in the Wasteland region is home to a shrine quest in Breath of the Wild, Secret of the Snowy Peaks. In it, Link stumbles across a ruined cabin in the mountains, where he can read a diary left behind by a traveler. The author explains that they traveled here to investigate rumors of a Sheikah shrine on the mountain. They were able to find the pedestal, but couldn't figure out how to access the shrine. Their food supply is exhausted faster than they expected, with their final entry noting that they've run out entirely. This paints an ominous picture of what happened to the unlucky explorer, but their notes contain a riddle that allows Link to access the shrine. If you come back here in Tears of the Kingdom, the cabin is almost entirely gone, with only the foundation remaining. The notebook is, of course, no longer there, but that's not all. The snow that once covered the mountaintop is gone as well. What was once the location of the Secret of the Snowy Peaks has lost not just its secret, but the snowy peaks too. There's nothing to suggest that this change was the result of the upheaval, so what's going on here? Well, at the peak of the mountain, Link can find an NPC named Rado, who challenges him to survive the region's intense temperatures, hot during the day and freezing cold at night. While this sounds like a somewhat interesting idea for a quest, there's no shortage of locations in the area that are hot during the day and cold during the night. It feels like an odd decision to completely alter the climate of this mountain for a simple test of endurance that could, theoretically, take place anywhere in the region.
Wait, hold on. Have you actually tried the endurance test?
No. Why?
I hadn't either until I was getting footage for this video, and I must say it's amazing how 2 years later, this game is still finding new ways to make me angry. In this quest, if you can even really call it that, you and Rado both put down a bet of 50 rupees, take all your clothes off, and stand on this pillar in level 1 cold all night long. This doesn't sound too bad, but there's no rules against eating food, building a campfire, using zonai devices, or fusing hot materials to your weapons. All of these are so easy to the point of being completely brainless, and what it ultimately amounts to is just standing around for 8 real-life minutes. If you win, which is basically a guarantee, your reward is 100 rupees and the ability to do the exact same quest, but this time you're betting 150 rupees and surviving in the heat. The rules are the same, so there's nothing to stop you from just fusing something cold to your sword and standing there for, and I cannot stress this enough, another 8 real-life minutes. That's 16 minutes where the controller wasn't even in my hands for a profit of just 200 rupees. What the hell is this, a major test of patience? Is this what passes for a side quest these days? is.
What more could you want? To return to the topic at hand though, once you've completed Rado's quest, he says he'll continue his training in the far north and disappears, leaving Link alone on Mount Grenage with no snow, no cabin, no Rado, and no answers.
I can't make a whole video about strange disappearances between Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom without mentioning everyone's favorite bird bard. Cass was one of the most popular characters in Breath of the Wild, and it's easy to see why. His design is awesome. He's a familiar presence that's comforting to run into while exploring this otherwise lonely world, and he's got a banger theme song. But much like the other things we've discussed in this video, in Tears of the Kingdom, Cass is nowhere to be found. And Cass isn't like some random relic or mysterious swamp. He's got loved ones, people who care about him. Remember the 5 Rito sisters we talked about earlier? The ones who sang together at Warbler's Nest? Those are Cass's daughters. For most of Breath of the Wild, Cass isn't at home, opting instead to abandon his family and go play the accordion in the woods forever. If you complete all of his quests, he'll finally go back to Rito Village, but if you talk to his daughters before that, they talk about how much they miss him, and his wife, Amali, talks about how difficult it is to watch over her 5 children by herself. But by the time Tears of the Kingdom rolls around, they've seemingly completely forgotten about him. You can talk to his wife and all of his daughters, but they never express worry for him or wonder where he is. But wait, there's this line where Genli refers to her Papa. That must be Cass, right? No, because in this game, I don't think Cass was ever her father. Hear me out. Cass disappeared after Breath of the Wild, right? And what color was Cass? That's right, blue and orange. What else was blue and orange and disappeared between the 2 games? That's right, the Sheikah tech. And who was Cass's mentor? The one who taught him everything he knew about music? That's right, the royal family's court poet, a member of the Sheikah tribe. Over and over again, Cass's role was to guide the hero towards the locations of the Sheikah shrines, and he appears again as part of the champion's ballad to give Link clues to the locations of the trials. Is it possible then that Cass was a creation of the Sheikah? With his purpose fulfilled, did he too crumble to dust? Well, no. Cass's disappearance from Tears of the Kingdom was neither the result of some convoluted Sheikah lore, nor was it an accident. I believe Cass is missing from Tears of the Kingdom on purpose because it's unsatisfying. Despite it taking 6 years to release, Tears of the Kingdom was, in many ways, rushed. We can see it in the 52 empty shrines, in the underwhelming Zora waterworks, in the giant empty depths, but every game has to come out eventually. The developers must have known that all of the mysteries left open-ended wouldn't satisfy Breath of the Wild's most dedicated fans, so Cass was removed, and in his place, a new Rito character appeared. Pen. Think about it. What does Pen do? He investigates seemingly interesting stories only to discover that they either go nowhere or have unsatisfying answers. He talks about Zelda riding a mysterious giant beast, but when you follow that thread, it just leads to the Don-Dons, who are cute, sure, but they don't do much besides sit around and poop out gemstones. Where else do we see Zelda riding a mysterious giant beast? That's right, in the 2019 reveal trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. Interesting speculation. Underwhelming answer. We see this again and again. The talking chicken, the fake Princess Zelda, the travelers who've fallen sick in the woods. Each and every time, it's anticlimactic. And what happens when you complete all of these quests? You receive the froggy armor, letting you climb in the rain. This addresses one of the most common complaints about Breath of the Wild, but it's 6 years too late, hardly matters in a game replete with flying machines and rocket shields, and isn't even accessible until you've already explored the entire map. And what about Pen? Well, he retires to Washa's Bluff, where Cass once lived. He too is searching for clues about what happened to him, and when you talk to Pen, what does he say? I thought there'd be at least some clue, but there's nothing. We are all Pen. We investigate, follow rumors, overthink, and are inevitably disappointed, but we don't give up. We persist. He is, in that sense, the only character in this game I'm able to relate to.
Wait, Skitty, you forgot to mention that there's no shrine on Shrine Island, and that this game costs 70.
Thanks so much for watching this video. I want to give a special thanks to Zeltik for joining me. This collab was a ton of fun and hopefully we'll do it again sometime. If you want to see the other video we did together about mysterious places in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, either click here or check the description. This video was brought to you by my patrons. Thank you all so much for your constant support. I'm hard at work on the Breath of the Wild video, and while I still don't have a definitive release date for you yet, I promise it's on the way. I've written over 24,000 words already, and I'll continue to chip away at it until I'm satisfied. I've also got a top secret side project that will release sometime before the Breath of the Wild video, so be on the lookout for that as well. Thanks so much again to Zeltik for joining me today, and thank you all for watching.